Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that's a name I haven't heard since Monday. Talked about that on Monday. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Resistance Broadcast. Brought to you by StarWarsNewsNet.com. I'm John Hoey. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It is our Thursday show. It is our discussion show. We have a lot to talk about today, but we are going to talk about one of our favorite generals. His name? General Kenobi. That's right. We are doing our second in our Star Wars character discussion series. Our first was a few weeks back on Sheevy Babes Palpatine. This week, our patrons voted for it. We gave them a list of 8 characters. They picked Obi-Wan Kenobi. And speaking of patrons, speaking of generals, this past Monday, I forgot to thank our Patreon generals. That is Adam Odell, Carmelo, Jeremy Shook, and Val Trichkov. I wanted to kick off this episode by saying thank you guys so much for all of your support. You guys are awesome. And we're going to talk about that general that you guys voted in on our Patreon page, General Kenobi, later on in the episode. But first, let's bring in our, I don't even know what we call ourselves here, but my co-hosts. It's James Bainey and Lacey Gillerin. Guys, do we have a titles? We're not generals. What are we?
I like to think of myself as the host, and then you guys are co-hosts.
Okay. Or is it assistant to the co-host?
Assistant to the regional co-host.
Right, there you go. Didn't you have a song called Assistant to... Didn't you have an Office quote? You said you had a song called that?
Yeah, one of our songs that we did a video for was called Assistant to the Regional Manager.
And was it about The Office?
Assistant. No. All of our, not all of our songs, but like for the first 3 albums, they were just like random. Like we had a song called Swords, Dragons, and Diet Coke, and it literally doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Well, that's fascinating. It is. Lacey, when you're not talking about naming songs, what are you doing? What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. Just ready to talk about some Star Wars. I just realized now I made myself sad because we did the generals thing, and I've started doing this for some reason because it seemed comfortable to me.
Right.
But then I've realized that it's what Tally does in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When
maybe.
she's sitting in the ship about to die from Kylo Ren shooting her ship.
Right.
And I've been doing this, and I hate Tally.
Oh. You didn't associate that with Lando
twist.
and
Han?
L3?
No. I think of Tally. Like, in the movie, she looks at the guy and she goes... But again, I'm a woman, so I'm not going to think of Lando. I'm going to think of a girl doing this, and the girl that does it is Tally.
What about Luke
and
Skywalker?
Tally sucks. Bombs away. I hate her.
What about Luke in Return of the Jedi? He does that to R2.
He's great too, but I don't want to be angry when thinking about that. I get angry when I think of Tally because she sucks.
Sound.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right, guys. First off, before we hop into Will of the Force, because you know that's coming, I do just want to thank everybody who has joined the Resistance recently. We've noticed a bit of an uptick in our YouTube subscribers, our likes on our YouTube videos, our comments. If you haven't checked us out there, you may be listening right now on SoundCloud. That's our biggest one. iTunes, even Spotify's a little bit of an uptick there, but our YouTube, it's our video version of the podcast. So if you want to check that out as well, you can watch that at home or wherever on your devices. We appreciate you coming on over there. And
I just
also
realized I was describing this, but nobody could see it when I was doing audio.
Unless they're on the YouTube.
Guys, when I said this, it's the 2-finger salute from the corner of my eyebrow out.
They picked it up. Right. We're saying all the examples.
Yeah, I know, but we kept
Lando
saying...
and L3.
I know, but we kept saying this, and I'm so sorry to audio people, but just know that I hate Tally. So that's all that came out of that conversation.
Keep a tally of how many times Lacey says how much
I
she
hate
hates Tally.
Yeah. I think I'm up to 4.
There you go.
And
also, guys, I want to thank everyone who has followed us on Twitter over at RBATSWNN. Those of you who send in Resistance transmissions and questions every week know all about that. And lastly, of course, everyone who supports us on Patreon at patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Guys, we have a very active Patreon page. I don't want to thump our chests here, but we want to be the most active Patreon page possible. We post pretty much every day. And if you are tier 2 and above, you get to contribute to the episode. Like our next segment here, The Will of the Force, you get to submit topics that we're going to tackle, and we give you a nice little shout out, and James Bainey will show you how that goes down right now. Cheer it him way. James, where is that guy?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
There he was.
I love that guy.
Yeah. One day I'm going to replace him without John knowing. And he's going to be like, man, that shirt quote's so great.
It's going to be like a chicken, like... Really, I love that quote. The strongest stars have hearts of Kyber, baby.
Woo! All right, so the Will of the Force this week, we're going to kick this one off by David Weiser. Thanks, he's a listener. And he has sent this one in a few times, so we figured we'd go ahead and tackle it because, just dues. Besides George Lucas, J.J. Abrams is the only director to do a second Star Wars movie. So the question is, will the marketing for Episode 9 put more focus on the director, J.J. Abrams, than previous Star Wars films to bring detractors of The Last Jedi back on board? So, Lacey, I'm going to start with you on this one. Do you think there's any chance that they're going to say, from the follow-up story from Rian Johnson in this one?
No. So here's my reasoning, and I hate to admit this. So a couple of weeks ago, I had brought up that because Adam Driver is now an Oscar-nominated actor, that they'd use it in marketing. And John was like, no, Lacey, you're an idiot. They would never use that. And I was like, yes, they would. And he's like, when have they ever called out any actors in any trailers? And I was like, oh, wait, John is completely right again. So here's another example of that where... they're not going to call out a director because they've never done that before in any Star Wars trailer. They're just going to call out the story and the characters and the end of the saga. They're not going to draw attention to J.J. Abrams. Yeah, he's great, but I just don't think that's where they're going to market it.
So that's a no. Okay.
That's a no. They will not.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Lacey. The Episode 9 trailer, like, from the producers of E.T., like,
with Oscar-nominated actor.
Yeah, exactly.
Adam
yeah, it's
Driver.
like the
producer
person
who brought you Goonies.
Yeah, and the
Kathy
director,
Kennedy presents Fart Buckets,
Star Trek, and Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It's like they're not going to do this
this Christmas. Kathleen Kennedy.
I don't think they need to be worried about any of that stuff, and I don't think they're going to put any more focus on the directors than they ever really have. So I'm going to bump it over to John to see if we can get a ding 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 on this one.
Because most people don't know who directed The Last Jedi. Like a normal fan doesn't know that.
David, they will.
Really?
They will. They will. They will. Yes, they will. I'm even going to create a shirt myself that's called Hey Bob. And it's...
Oh, wait. I forget. John writes these questions. What?
Now, you guys are thinking trailer.
Oh, wait. You didn't write this one.
There's other ways. Yeah, a listener sent this in. Keep up, Lacey.
Sorry.
You guys are thinking trailer, but there's other ways to market these movies. I think they're going to put JJ more at the forefront and talk about him more, and behind the scenes stuff and retrospectives and behind the scenes videos, interviews with him. You can market the movie that way too, whereas they didn't as much with Rian Johnson, not necessarily with The Last Jedi, which actually had a smaller marketing than I think The Force Awakens did. The Force Awakens was everywhere, how that movie was marketed. So I think they will in that sense. As I've said, you won't see that stuff in trailers. You never will. All you're going to see is this Christmas when it comes to Star Wars trailers. But yeah, I think they will lay more on J.J. Abrams because they know fans overall really loved what he did with The Force Awakens. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
And they like him. He has a reputation.
Disney loves J.J. Abrams, and Disney handles the marketing.
I meant,
so there you go.
The fans love J.J. Abrams.
The fans too. Which some of them own Disney because it's a publicly traded
company.
Can I
just take a second to note that on Monday we had a marketing question, in our Patreon video, and I answered it, and you guys mocked me for being like, wow, weren't you in marketing? And then this is another example of like, I specifically went to the trailers about marketing, and I didn't know we were talking about overall marketing. So then, okay, never mind.
I don't think John's right on that. I don't think they're going to put much emphasis on J.J. Abrams.
Let me just say, David,
we're going to know him, we're going to see him, but I don't think they're ever going to be like
the charm. Thank you for sending that in. Good question.
The next question is a Patreon submission. So this actually comes from someone who has joined our Patreon, and this is Commander Ryan Syme jumping in to ask us a question, and he says, it's not Simi, it's Syme, over, under 159 minutes, which is 2 hours and 39 minutes runtime for episode 9. Go, John. What do you say? This isn't a will question.
Well, it's saying, will it be over? Let's say it that way, okay?
All right. Will it be over or under 159 minutes?
It will be over. It will be as close to 3 hours as possible. It will be a fast 3 hours because JJ knows how to make a fast-moving Star Wars movie, and they need to wrap it up. And how do you do that? You add more time to it. And I think it's going to be, right around 3 hours. So obviously, it will be over 2 hours and 39 minutes, which will make it the longest Star Wars movie of all time.
Lacey, are you agreeing with John? Over? Getting close to that 3 hour range? What do you say?
Yeah, I think it will be over 2 hours and 39 minutes. I would even say it might be over 3 hours.
Woo!
I mean, it
don't eat asparagus before you see that movie.
Hold on. Wasn't Avengers over 3 hours?
That doesn't make you need to go pee, John.
Okay. I digress. I digress, gentlemen. Wasn't Avengers over 3 hours?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, well, I could see it being over 3 hours. I mean, if I sat through Titanic 4 times, I can sit through a 3 hour Star Wars movie.
I don't know if it'd be over 3 hours, but I'll take it. I'll watch a 5 hour Star Wars movie.
I'll watch a 10-hour Star Wars movie.
Right. You guys won't watch The Last Jedi, and it's like 2:30.
It's true.
What do you mean?
Because you guys saying it's slow.
It is slow.
And I agree.
I never say that.
Which is why I know what you guys aren't. And you guys aren't cashews, because cashews aren't nuts. And you guys are nuts.
Callback. That's correct. It's not a nut.
This movie's going to be 224.
What is happening?
Okay. All right. So you're saying under. Okay.
Under.
Okay.
Absolutely
right.
under. There's no way they're going for a 3 hour movie. Now, there's a lot to be said, but they're going to make it all fine in that shoot time, because you got to remember too, 3 hour movies, that means you can only have so many show times in a weekend, you know.
James,
so you got to keep that number somewhat low. I said 224.
Okay, so if it's more than 224, you have to get up and leave at 224.
Wow.
Yeah, right. I'm never making that bet.
Is episode...
Could you imagine? He's like, and gotta go.
Yeah, James does not want to miss Kylo Ren getting a hole through the chest.
All right, we're getting off topic.
Thank you for being a patron. Thanks for the submission.
Thanks, Simi.
Okay. Next question is, will Mon Mothma appear in Star Wars Episode 9? So we're already talking about Episode 9. Now we gotta, you guys are, hey, maybe these 3 hour crazies over here think there's enough time to stick Mon Mothma in there. I'm going to say no to this one, but I'm going to go to Lacey. What do you think? Do you think Mon Mothma has any chance to make an appearance in Episode 9?
No, Dameron. No way she's going to be in Episode 9. And I'm just still laughing at the fact that James is going to have to get up and leave at 2 hours and 24 minutes.
I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that.
John.
If he does and we're together, he just has to go get me new popcorn. That's all.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, and more asparagus.
I'll take the Sour Patch.
More asparagus, apparently. And more pink stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Will Mon Mothma appear in Star Wars? Well, she's alive at this point, but retired. And with Leia not maybe being as featured as much, there's an opportunity. I know the original actress is still alive. She's in her 80s, who played Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi. But I will also round this out with a trio here of no Dameron sirs. Okay?
No Dameron.
Yeah,
sorry,
for all
Mon.
the same points. I just don't think there's enough room and
so it should be
to bring
non.
I was just about to say that, non-Mothma.
Wow.
I just thought that.
Oh, this is how we make
so
stickers,
good.
folks. This is how we make stickers.
All right, guys. Well, off the heels of him once again confirming his trilogy is still happening, will Rian Johnson's trilogy be mentioned at all during any Lucasfilm panel at Star Wars Celebration? So, John, I'm going to start with you on this one. We have in this question, there's a big caveat there. It says, will it be in any, panel? And I think that solidifies the answer for me. But what do you think? Do you think there's any chance that we're going to see Rian Johnson pop up in an official capacity here at Star Wars Celebration?
No, I don't. I do not think so. You know why? And I hope this isn't the case, but I could see something where I don't think he'd be there for one. So it'd just be like someone talking about it, whether it's Kathleen Kennedy, who loves Rian Johnson, or, Alan Horn or somebody else. But I could see a smattering of boos and then the crowd fighting with each other, and they don't want that at Celebration. So while I think his movie still will happen, I don't think they're in a situation where they want to announce it to a crowd that might become divisive with each other. So for that reason, I don't think we're going to hear about his trilogy, which we just got a reconfirmation that it's happening. So what else are you going to say about it if there's nothing to report? No need to report that until we have something to report. I don't think we're going to hear it. So no.
Lacey, any chance that Rian Johnson's trilogy will be mentioned officially at Star Wars Celebration?
It's funny. My first reaction, my gut reaction was going to be yes, and like some type of like future of Star Wars panel on Sunday or Monday at the show. But now that John said it, and I think he's completely right again, is that people booing it and the negativity that could surround it, even if it's false, guys, we're not saying it's right, will force them to just kind of avoid the situation.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants that video going around social media of the crowd booing Rian Johnson.
Hashtag John is right again in the comments.
Weird. I'm kind of on the opposite of this.
Thanks, Lacey. It was very nice of you to say.
I would think I sound just like you. Weird.
my gut reaction to it is no, they wouldn't, because there's nothing to report. There's nothing to talk about. I don't think they have anything to announce. They don't want to announce the title. They don't want to announce the release date. They don't want to announce the theme, or they don't want to announce anything like that. They got nothing to report. There's plenty of other stuff to talk about that's coming a lot sooner. So no, but that little piece in there, John, that you said at all during any Lucasfilm panel, I'm like, someone's bound to mention this. Someone's bound to say, there's this coming up, there's this coming up, there's this coming up. It's gonna get mentioned at some point. I just think it's inevitable. You can't go all Celebration without somebody mentioning this trilogy that's outstanding right now.
I gotta clarify. I didn't mean like at the 47-minute mark of his panel, Anthony Daniels says, and Rian Johnson's got his trilogy coming. Whoa, look at me, I'm goofy. Like, I meant like someone talking about it as a bullet point. That's how I took
your guys' responses is like, nope, this is just off the docket. Don't talk about it.
No.
No, we're talking like an announcement panel.
A bullet point presentation type of thing where they're like, and then...
Well, I'm with you then. I don't think they have anything to report. So there's nothing to be said about it. They're not going to make any sort of announcements.
Okay.
So, all right, we are all on the same page on that one. Last one we got here is a Patreon submission from Admiral Tampa Movie Guy. what a name. That's his official military name.
Then you say you call him TMG, right?
TMG. And he is our admiral, and he got a question on this week, which is, will the rumored Obi-Wan, you got to throw in that rumored, it's still a rumor, it's not official. Will the rumored Obi-Wan series be limited to one season, tell a complete story, and lead into A New Hope? So couple little tricky aspects to that. Lacey, I'm going to start with you. Is there any chance that all of this is going to happen? One season, one story, and will that story take place, in the Rogue One Rebels era, if you will, leading into A New Hope?
I think it will take place between 3 and 4. I think that's pretty obvious.
Duh, Dameron.
What?
Duh, Dameron?
Duh.
Hot marketing scoop here.
I think that it could be one season, but it depends on what the arc of the story is. Oh my God. What kind of laugh is that?
That's the chicken we were talking about.
Get it together. All right. So then it depends if it's a complete story arc or not. Because if they want to make money, they're going to make more than one season. But I could see them making one season with a complete story and then being like, oh, this is super popular. We'll make a second season. So starting off, it'll be one season. It'll be one miniseries. And it'll take place before A New Hope.
John, you part of your report was that it was 6 episodes. So does this answer the question for you that it definitely is 6 episodes? That's it, one and done?
You know what? I do think the goal in mind is to make it a limited series of 6 episodes. And I think it will take place like right dab in the middle of the gap between 3 and 4. So like 10 years before A New Hope. So around when Solo takes place, right? And the reason for that is you can't have Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan go right up next to Alec Guinness. You still need that gap to let, like, he's going to age and then look like him sort of thing. So they're going to have him look aged 10 years beyond the Revenge of the Sith. But they need that gap there. I think that's very, very important. I also think that allows you to introduce a like 9-year-old Luke Skywalker, like a little kid to play Luke Skywalker that he can watch over and maybe see him in a brief scene, that sort of thing. So that makes sense. So I think their time frame is going to be right in the middle there. And they're going to, at least that also leaves it open if it becomes a wild success and every Star Wars fan unites around the flag here and gets together behind this thing. They're like, we can get a movie out of this thing to end it. And leave that open. So for like all those reasons, it just makes too much sense for them to put it distant there. So I think it's going to be right in the middle between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, that 10-year in between there.
Yeah, all right. TMG, we got limited to 1 season. Yes, because I already have been on record. I don't think there's a lot of story to tell. So if they come up with one story, they're going to tell that story and it's going to be a complete story. So that answers the second part of your question and lead into A New Hope. I think that John's more right, but I'm going to do him even one further. I'm going 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. I think if this story is going to take place, you have to have him still in a position where he thinks he might be able to do something, or he's still anxious, you know? And I think with the resolve of this is going to put him in a 15-year period where he's like done, you know? Then he just sits there. I think the closer you get to Alec Guinness as well, the closer you get to Mark Hamill. And you don't want to have someone, you don't want to have a 19-year-old kid looking not like Mark Hamill as well. So I think you got to go the other way. You got to have a 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid. You got to have an Obi-Wan that looks like Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan, you know, closer to Ewan, played by Ian. That makes sense. And I think that's when he's still unsettled about the whole situation, and he might be willing to do something about it. So I think you're going closer to Revenge of the Sith than you are. Plus it gives that period of like, that's a name I've not heard in a long time, you know? If it's too close to that, then you get the whole movie calling him Ben, which could be fine. Well,
also you have to, unless he lied again, which I guess Obi-Wan is known for lying, and we'll get into that in a little bit, I guess. But he did tell Luke, I haven't gone by the name Obi-Wan since before you were born. So yeah. He may have to go by Ben this whole series.
Which leads to another Will the Force question, which isn't here, but will the show be called Obi-Wan, or will it be called Ben Kenobi, like Logan?
Yeah, I like Ben Kenobi. I think that'd be cool. But
okay. Well, that's all the time we got for Will of the Force this week. We are going to wrap it up, and we are going to do something that has become a new part of our show, which is the Patreon Podrace. This week, we got a hold of General Carmelo, and we asked him this specific question so that he could record a video and give us his answer so that he could participate in the podcast. We'll take a second to talk about our thoughts on his thoughts. The question that we sent him this week was, if he had the power to make it happen, what would be his dream Star Wars TV series? And let's send it over to General Carmelo.
Good evening, guys. This is Mello with another Podrace. For today's Podrace, I was asked, knowing that The Mandalorian, the Cassian Andor, and the possibility of an Obi-Wan show are coming to Disney Plus, what kind of shows would I like to see published and produced? Well, to be honest with you, I want something that's probably gonna catch a lot of flack from John. I want non-canon stuff. I want Revan. I want the Old Republic. I want Grey Jedis. I want Jedi armies against Sith armies fighting each other, all grandeur, all our war. And I think the Benioff and Weiss guys from Game of Thrones can bring that up, and hopefully they do it. And because I think that's something that needs to be explored, and it will give you so much content. And now that we have this vehicle that is Disney Plus, it's a great place to put it and explore. Well, guys, that's all I have. You have a wonderful night, and viva la resistance.
Okay, so wow, so all right, so Revan and all of the legend stuff, that's pretty interesting. I mean,
I got called out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I don't think that that's a crazy idea, right? I mean, some of these characters are things that have a great opportunity to be expanded on and have long form stories told about them, and some of that stuff in Legends is slowly being brought back anyway, so that actually makes a lot of sense. Do you guys have any other thoughts on what he had to say? Is that a good idea, bad idea? Is that happening? Are we sure that might be happening? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I know. I was just going to say.
You got called out. You should go first.
Yeah,
true. Well, yeah. Thanks for calling me out, Mello. What the heck? My whole thing with Legends is that, the whole thing about Lucas never really considered them his canon, and some of the storylines are just absolutely outrageous and that sort of thing. I don't mind the idea of borrowing from it or reintroducing a character like how they did with Thrawn, so I'm not completely like a Sith dealing with the absolutes there. Mm-hmm. So it could be cool. I wouldn't rule that out. But you are right. Probably out of this group, I'm one of the least fans of the Legends type of stuff. But if they were able to come up with some kind of series with Darth Revan and made it really dark and gritty and cool, I'd be on board. So I kind of like what you're saying there, Mello. And good job. Again, great job.
Yeah. Lacey, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be on board for a Knights of the Old Republic show. However, I really want to see that series done by Benioff and Weiss, because they're Game of Thrones, guys. Like, it just seems like it's too good to be true, right? So yeah, you make some great points, Mello, and I would totally love to see those like gritty, kind of gory Star Wars stuff. I know, I get it, guys. Star Wars is for kids, it's for 12-year-olds, it's for fun. But like, you know what? Sometimes I just want to see people get killed. So let's I want to see people get killed. So let's have some really adult Star Wars. I would be for it. I'm not gonna be against it. I don't say it's. I feel like I'm going to get so much hate right now because people are going to be like, it's for children. But sometimes I just want to watch some crazy like action movies that aren't for kids. I like Deadpool. That's not for kids necessarily. So let's get some rated R Star Wars. Gritty shows.
This day and age, you can still pull off pretty decent action without making it rated R.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, don't forget in Rebels, we had decapitations.
It's animated, James.
Yes. We saw Anakin burn to a crisp.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So is that it? That's it, right?
Yeah. Good job, Mello. Well done.
Mello,
for sure.
Again, you are a general, and you proved it once again while you have that rank. Killed it. We appreciate it, and we'll see your pod race next month. So thank you, guys. It is time to talk about another general. And we're going to get into this week's discussion, which is our second Star Wars character focus discussion. And it is on Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, Darth Vader?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Nope.
No? Why not?
Did you say that our discussion is Darth Vader?
No, he introduced the clip right there. He said, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. Our audio clip that you put into the episode. Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. So Obi-Wan did once think as we do, and he is the first Jedi we ever met. He's a mysterious old wizard. Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi set the tone for what a Jedi is for all of us in A New Hope. From there, he handed off the legacy to Luke Skywalker, guiding him in spirit, quite literally, and then we learned about a younger Kenobi in the prequels. One of the most fleshed out characters in franchise history. Let's talk about the legend, Obi-Wan Kenobi, followed by our thoughts on what we think we could expect in that possible Kenobi series on Disney+. So, as James hides a yawn there, good job trying to hide that. Let's talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's open the floodgates. Who wants to start off on our discussion?
You start this week, John.
Oh, well, sure. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is our introduction to Obi-Wan Kenobi, just as how it happened, and which would be the stereotypical old wizard that George Lucas wanted to encompass back in 1977. And I did a little digging on like kind of where the character came from and the archetype and how it fits into the old classic fantasy mold. Think about like Gandalf and Lord of the Rings, a lot of Japanese films. He actually initially wanted a Japanese actor to be cast as Obi-Wan. And the role that it plays, it's simple, but it's impactful, and it's the old wizard. And I think Alec Guinness encompassed it very well. And let's not forget about our interview with J.W. Rinsler, where he said there was a misconception that Alec Guinness hated playing the role. He really warmed up to it, and he actually didn't want the character killed off, which was, I believe, Marshall Lucas's decision to have him killed off in A New Hope. So it's funny how it's such a fleshed out character for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but at the beginning, even through beginning to end of A New Hope, it was never really mapped out. So we didn't really know where the character was going to go. And then if you take it back to the prequels, there was probably no clue of any of that happening. When he recorded the lines that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father, he literally meant that because he thought that Darth Vader and Luke's father were two different people at the time. So it's just interesting how the character has developed over time and to where we are today, where we're potentially talking about now a Kenobi series. It's just... I just love the character overall, and I think it's one of the characters that Lucas absolutely nailed because I think if I had to pick a Jedi that encompasses every personality trait of all the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the archetype of that. He's like the meld of all of the Jedi's personalities into one.
He's GOAT, greatest of all time.
Yeah, I don't much like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I was waiting for James to answer because I know he doesn't like him. Go ahead, James.
I'm fine with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I just don't see what other people find so fascinating about him. He's not that good at lightsaber fights. He constantly is like wrong about stuff, you know. He's like, I don't know. I don't know. I can't like sum it up necessarily.
Maybe we should have made this a Star Wars war.
We really should have.
I mean, I've every scene that I feel like he's in, I feel like people are talking over his head. Like they're constantly saying like, you I don't know, like Jedi today think that they're better than what they are, and he's like, must be talking about somebody else, and it's like, no, we're talking about you. And I think that type of dialogue goes over every other Kenobi fan's head. They're like, yeah, he really is the best. He's like the best at everything. And I'm like, he's not. He like gets thrown to the side so many times. I mean, how many times like Anakin had to save him, you know, getting thrown into the pit of Gundarks, you know. There's a comic called Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan needed saving, and Anakin saved him. Like,
so because someone needed saving, that makes them a bad Jedi?
Every time? Yeah, pretty much every time.
James, didn't you know that Obi-Wan sometimes put himself purposely in those situations to see how Anakin would handle it?
I don't think that's true. I think that would be an interesting spin if somebody tried to say that was what was going on.
I would fall into a nest of Gundarks to see if he would save me. Why not?
Would you get trapped on Geonosis?
Yes, I would.
to see if Anakin, who's currently with Padme, would come and rescue you?
Yes, I would. That's a test. That is a test.
Would you be fighting Count Dooku and then let Dooku cut into your arms and throw you to the side and then sit there?
He cut his robe
and watch Yoda. Yoda fight Dooku.
You know what I found the most interesting about your
And then as soon as
statement?
they're done, he gets up. He's like, "Oh, I could have helped, but he
The most
didn't."
interesting thing I found about your statement is that you said he's not good fighting with a lightsaber. I think if you look at the history of Star Wars fights and Jedi, especially in battles, I think he's probably been one of the most successful. He beat General Grievous, who had like 6 lightsabers, right?
I understand that, but I too think that
he beat Darth Vader.
Bunch of other Jedi could have been able to.
He beat Darth Vader at arguably the peak of Darth Vader's physicality. He beat Darth Maul after Darth Maul took down his master.
And I was going to point that out too.
He beat him again. He beat him again when he was an old man. He beat him.
Yeah.
He killed him.
I do think that his
record,
Phantom Menace win,
the back of his baseball card looks pretty good in my opinion, in terms of lightsaber fighting. And then I'll let Lacey hop in because I know she thinks he's the GOAT. But I just want to say, in terms of things going over his head, I kind of disagree with that. I think he sometimes played the let's see how this shakes out type of role, and that doesn't necessarily mean things are going over his head.
Well, if the clones wouldn't have shown up, it wouldn't have been a victory. And Yoda's like, victory? Like, you call that like a victory? And I'm like, that's just that he's summing up a lot of other Jedi in that scene. But I think like that's the kind of stuff that I feel like, why am I on the
Yeah, but that's not fair. Yoda's like Einstein. That's like me being in a room, trying to talk to Albert Einstein about stuff. But the one thing I will give you on Obi-Wan is he definitely had insecurities when it came to Anakin's power, and he tried to really hammer home that he was the boss in that relationship. But I'll get into that in a minute. Lacey, what's your take on the Kenobs here? We got me and James on opposite ends of the spectrum. So
I thoroughly love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've always loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. I loved him from the moment that I met him in A New Hope. I thought he was kind of like one of those old men that is like not secretly witty, but like understatedly witty. Like you don't catch on until you're older. Like when you're younger and watching it, you don't catch on his little like subtle jabs and whatnot, especially to Han Solo, which I find hilarious. Who's more foolish,
the fool or the fool who follows him?
Yeah, like stuff like that. And then you see him. I think he's a perfect character that shows a complete arc of not knowing their purpose in the beginning, thinking that it's going to go one way. It goes a different way, and they adapt accordingly. And despite all the tragedy and terrible things that happen to him, he ends up still sacrificing himself for the greater good because he knows that it's not just him, that the big issue, the bigger cosmos, the bigger force is bigger than everybody. And he has to explain that to Luke. And that to me is something so, I hate to use this word, but like magical about Obi-Wan Kenobi because he gets it. He gets that it's bigger than him. He gets that he's willing to sacrifice everything that he's done in his life, whether you say, James, that he's, not good at being a Jedi or that, he's insecure around Anakin. A lot of the decisions he makes throughout his life are because of other people, because he's giving himself to the greater good and believing in what's right. And I think having a character like that ties all the movies together is just something so wonderful that's why I think he's a GOAT. That's why I think he's wonderful. That's why he's one of the best Jedi in Star Wars, because at the end of the day, it wasn't about him. It was about other people. And that's what George Lucas was all about with Jedi. It's about selflessness. It's about giving yourself to something bigger than you, with the understanding that you're going to have to make your own sacrifices and give stuff up along the way. But as long as you're moving towards that mission of doing the right thing, it doesn't matter because you're a Jedi. And that's all about sacrificing your wants and needs for others. And I think he's the epitome of a character in Star Wars that does that. He gives up his wants and needs in Phantom Menace to take on Anakin. He then takes on Anakin because that's Qui-Gon's.
What? I don't know that he did that.
His
wants and needs. He did. He said he didn't want to train Anakin.
He didn't want to train Anakin. He did it because Qui-Gon asked him to. He didn't want to take on Anakin.
Okay,
I would say he didn't agree with Qui-Gon that he should.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think Obi-Wan as a character is definitely someone who was a character who seemed to be devoted to his obligation to his master, and I think we're going to learn a lot more about that in Master and Apprentice. But
right, and about their friendship, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, his life is not about I'm here to have a good time and have my best life possible. Like, he went into exile for years. He went through all the stuff that happened.
That's why I think him and Anakin complement each other, because Anakin's the exact opposite. He's me all the time. This is what I think. Me. This is what I want to do. I love this person. I want to be with this person. And Obi-Wan Kenobi's over there being like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure other people are safe? That Anakin's doing what's right, that Padme's okay. Like, he's doing all these other things for everybody else, that he puts himself in danger in all these scenarios, James, that you're then saying is like, oh, well, then Anakin has to come save him. Yeah, because he's putting himself out there to make sure other things are being accomplished. Maybe not in the best way.
I want to ask James this, because the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin is interesting to me, because I do think that Obi-Wan had a little bit of jealousy of Anakin in terms of like his power, and maybe a little insecurity that, oh my God, my Padawan is actually more powerful than me. What can I teach him? What's my purpose? So you see him knock Anakin down a peg every so often. Like, he's always stresses my very young apprentice and my young Padawan. You have a lot to learn. And why are you talking back to me? But James, you're a big Clone Wars fan. I watched it once through one time, but the arc I rewatch a couple times is the Mortis arc. And do you get the feeling that is where Kenobi actually believed the prophecy by the end of that arc? Because I get the feeling that he didn't buy it up until that point. So I want to hear what your take is on that, based on all the events of the Mortis arc and hearing his visit from Qui-Gon and everything that happened with the Trinity there in the Mortis arc, and then Obi-Wan potentially coming to the realization that maybe he was indeed the chosen one, based on how everything ended up.
Before you get there, the prophecy is that there's a chosen person that will bring balance to the Force. Just for people that might not know that. Right.
The prophecy is that Qui-Gon believed this when he met Anakin, that he was the fulfillment of the prophecy, and Obi-Wan didn't necessarily believe that.
Was not as sure. Yeah,
right, and he says that, I think.
That's a good it's a good point, that there has to be some point in the timeline where Obi-Wan kind of changes his mind on that, and it's probably It has to be somewhere between Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he's saying, you were supposed to be the chosen one.
Right.
And I think he truly believes that was the case, although in subsequent stuff, we kind of find out that he is the chosen one, but yet Obi-Wan goes on to believe that somebody else is the chosen one. So he's kind of wrong in that sense. But where he starts to believe, I don't know, man. It might be, it might be at the end of somewhere in the Clone Wars. That's the only thing I can think. Well, it seems like the Clone Wars starts where it finishes. Like in Clone Wars, the first episode of that movie, I feel like him and Anakin are like best buds.
Yeah, I don't like the movie, man.
What?
I don't like the movie.
That's fine. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in Attack of the Clones, Anakin seems definitely like a teenager that needs to be brought down by his dad, his single father or whatever, right? But then as soon as you get into Clone Wars, even in those episodes, it's weird. Anakin almost seems like a master and an equivalent to Obi-Wan at that point.
That's fair.
So I think that their real camaraderie came somewhere in the middle of that. I think something happened before the Clone Wars series started,
or perhaps the introduction to Ahsoka
that really brought in his understanding of, like, I think I got someone special on my hands, and I'm going to start treating him like I don't know, like a peer, even though, you know what I mean, like when a son and a father become like best friends. less so than like that keeping that relationship of father-son their whole lives.
I think, and here's my take on his like obligation sense, and I think it's kind of like a pre-Anakin and a post-Anakin, where pre-Anakin, before pre-Anakin's death, or to turn to Darth Vader, whatever you want to call it, it was an obligation to Qui-Gon Jinn to fulfill it, train it. It was his dying words: train the boy, promise me you'll train him. He says, yes, I will. Even though he didn't believe he was the chosen one until a certain point. Then it happens. They fight. He destroys Anakin as far as he knows. Then you have post-Anakin, where it becomes, now it's his obligation to right the wrong, and how to do that, I have to train his son. So then Obi-Wan feels an obligation then to watch over this boy for all these years and make sure he is not down the same path that Anakin is. So I think it's two different obligations. It's like his whole life is an obligation. It's almost like Obi-Wan's kind of like a tragic character and a very human Jedi. I guess that's why people like him a lot.
He definitely is tragic. I mean, he felt like he failed Anakin, and that's why he felt obligated to watch over Luke, because he failed Anakin.
And he almost failed Luke when Luke's dangling on Cloud City asking for Ben. You don't hear Ben respond. He says, I can't go with you.
I think Ben did fail Luke.
You think so?
Yeah,
Ben
Luke
was like, and then Luke failed Ben.
Oh God, you're gonna.
Gosh.
Oh, man.
Well,
Just saying.
okay,
Just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, did Luke fail Ben, or did Ben fail Luke? Which is what Ray says.
Let's stay on target
here. He failed
here.
you, but
stay on target. I'm just saying, it's a big circle. If you think about it, talk about poetry, it rhymes.
Oh, that quote.
Yeah, I mean, I also, in some ways too, Yoda kind of failed there as well. They both.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They both were like, don't do this. And then doing that led to him finding out the truth sooner than he was ready for. But at the end of it, I don't know that they really, I don't know. I think that it all ended up okay. And Yoda and Ben were the people that were saying, don't do what you're about to do, you know? I don't know. It's kind of tricky when it comes to that stuff. I wanted to point out, Lacey, one thing that you said earlier is you said that he was very open and connected to the Force and stuff. And I felt like that's Jedi 101. That's like what you learn when you are the tiniest of tiny Padawans. Like you're, 5 years old. They teach you about the Force, and all Jedi believe that it is this that surrounds us, binds us. I mean, that's Yoda's words, but however he describes it in A New Hope. I think that even people that aren't Force sensitive, like people, the Church of the Force and stuff, they believe that it truly 100% is a real tangible thing.
Of course, but I still think that there's people that doubt it at times and don't. No, I mean,
but that's fine. But I think that's just that's basic being a Jedi. I don't think that makes him an exceptional Jedi.
With a person like Kenobi,
I said it played into it.
Sure. And that's fair in a sense, because Obi-Wan's like the last of the old guard, where he was connected with the Force and brought to the temple. I believe I looked it up, he was 6 months old or something like that, and he doesn't remember his youth at all.
Yeah, I want to throw this fact in real quick. He was and this was an old Legends thing, but it's official canon now. He comes from the planet Stujon, which was created because Jon Stewart, the old Daily Show host, asked George Lucas one time where Obi-Wan Kenobi's home planet was, and he on the fly really quickly said Stujon.
Is that right?
That's the real story.
That's pretty
Shut
good.
up.
That's pretty good.
Gosh. I wish that I had that power to be like, hey George, can you name something after me?
Right. Yeah. So it's funny you say that about believing in the Force, the two of you just now, because Luke knew what life was without the Force for 19 years. So he has something to reference. Whereas Obi-Wan Kenobi has zero memory of not being connected to the Force. So it is his entirety. It's like, James, when you were talking about your time with the band being a big part of your life, because you experienced it, whereas other people don't know what that's like. That's the same thing here, where Obi-Wan didn't know anything else beforehand. But then I take that part of him as life lifer Jedi. But then I think what people really are attracted to Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character is that he is a little bit of a Han Solo type, because
yes, absolutely.
When we talked about the foxhole thing, who would you want? And I said Obi-Wan Kenobi because he always finds his way to get out of things. He does it in a very regular Joe kind of way. Like he'll be hanging from a cliff and jump over and grab a blaster and shoot someone. It's not conventional for him, but he always finds a way out of stuff.
You guys are like remembering all the times when like things happened to go his way or he was able to get out of stuff. But you're forgetting all the times when he's like, we're smarter than this. How did we get it? Don't worry, Master. R2 will be along to save us.
See, but
it's
I like that,
How does Obi-Wan, a master Jedi, find himself so often in these situations where
that's what humanizes him, though. That's what
I like about him. I like that he gets stuck in situations. I don't want my Jedi to
be humanized. I feel that's a flaw.
Then that's the bigger problem then. Not Obi-Wan specifically.
How can you empathize and relate to a Jedi character? And I think this was a big problem in the prequels, where you just have like super Jedis flipping around and they have faceless, nameless. Like what attracts you to a character? What's their flaws other than if they are an Anakin who is tempted by the dark side, or they are a Kenobi who has their flaws? What's the attraction to a perfect specimen Jedi who does no wrong and they know everything? That doesn't do anything for me at all.
I think that's Superman, and that's what I like about Superman.
But he's flawed too.
Is he?
Yeah, look at Man of Steel.
No,
he had plenty of
kryptonite.
flaws. Living as an alien in a world where you're not, you're different and you're always targeted. Like,
but he's not doing the wrong thing.
Right.
That's the thing with me is like I think of the Jedi as something that we should look up to, and when somebody's constantly getting themselves in bad predicaments, or they're constantly making mistakes, or they're unsure of themselves and stuff, it makes me not want to feel attracted to that religion or that heroism, to look up to these people. Like, these are the top of the top of the top Jedis. He's sitting at in the Masters, the council.
Who's the Jedi then? Who's the Jedi that you look up to that encompasses that?
Somebody asked this on Twitter, and they were looking for the Jedi that like fully encompasses what it means to be the Jedi, and I don't have a solid answer for that, but I believe the closest to that is Yoda. Even though people say like he's made mistakes, I always feel like, is it a mistake if at the time you were misled into making this decision, and you look back on it and you say, we shouldn't have done that, but there's no way we could have known. It wasn't him making a personal, like, selfish choice, like Obi-Wan has offered on numerous occasions, including Satine. Like, had you said the word, I would have turned my back on the Jedi Order. And I'm like, that sucks, man. I don't want my Obi-Wan doing that. He's supposed to be the steadfast straight man, and Anakin is supposed to be the person who's making those types of mistakes.
Yeah, I didn't like the Satine angle at all, honestly.
But people, that's what they say is like, oh, that makes him flawed, that makes him relatable, and I'm like, no, it doesn't.
I like
don't
his
like
flaws
that stuff.
in other areas, but I agree with you there. I do agree with you there. And then he did, say very un-Jedi things, like he told Darth Maul, like, I should have cut your head off instead, and that's a little dark for Kenobi. But
yeah,
I think
one other thing too I want to mention about the Clone Wars is like almost always, like it feels like in so many episodes, the conversation between him and Anakin, and even Ahsoka on times, is that Obi-Wan is like, well, we don't know what to do. And then Anakin's like, I know what we should do. We should do this. And he's like, oh, you're always getting me into trouble, Anakin. Like, and I'm like, why is this not the other way around? Why is it not Anakin saying, I don't know what we're supposed to do, and he's saying, this is what we're going to do. I'm the father. I'm the leader. I'm telling you what's going to happen. And then Anakin's like, okay.
I think there's a conflict for me between Obi-Wan that's in the movies and Obi-Wan that's in the Clone Wars series.
But I think they're very. I think in the movies.
I don't know. I think they're different, which you're gonna get with two different actors.
Sure.
That are playing the character. I understand that they want to make it their own, but at the same time, I feel like the writing in the Clone Wars series is a little different than the writing in the movie.
I'll say this. I'll agree with Lacey there, but I'll say it's because I think the Clone Wars was too long. I think
Maybe.
there's too many.
As there's a new series coming out.
Possibly.
I know that's going to be a very, very unpopular statement, but whatever. It's
I think the reason people like Anakin in the Clone Wars and Ahsoka became lovable characters because they were confident, and Obi-Wan was never confident in that show.
Think about this though: 6 episodes of the Clone Wars is the length of Attack of the Clones, and they had 6 seasons of that show of however many episodes. That's a lot of time. So there's going to be a lot of fillers and a lot of all this stuff centered around these characters where you're going to have departures because you can't have the same thing every time. You can't be like the Adam West Batman series where he has the repellent every time. So I do have my issues with the Clone Wars there. That's why I try to focus on the certain arcs and I forget about some of the other stuff in there. But I mean, I know we're up against time here. We probably could go on
final
about
thoughts.
Kenobi. But yeah, I want to just say, I think in terms of Obi-Wan Kenobi and what I think may draw a lot of people to him, aside from he's been there since the beginning. So even our parents and their parents there, whoever just have always loved the character, set by the path by Alec Guinness. But he is a legendary Jedi who's seen it all. But at the same time, he's a very human and very relatable in that sense. To like why people like Batman, because he doesn't have superpowers, but he's a superhero. Kenobi is a very powerful Jedi, but at the same time, he has flaws and he shows that human side. And I think that's what draws people in. And I think that's what's they may focus on in the series when it comes out. But I want to talk about it more in the future, but I want to hear what you guys think to close out the discussion.
Yeah, I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is just one of those characters that everybody loves because he's, a fun, witty, smart character that is flawed, like John says, that's human, that makes mistakes, and that isn't the chosen one. It's really hard to relate to a character when you're constantly being told that they're the chosen one, whereas you have the guy next to him being like, well, I'm not the chosen one, but I'm kind of cleaning up the messes and or trying to help him get there, so you can relate more to it. I also I love Obi-Wan in A New Hope. I think he's the perfect character in that movie. And I think that's why people like him. I think people like the old guy character. I have a very close relationship with my dad, so any type of character that's like a father figure, I adore. So that's why I personally like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I don't want to necessarily come across like I don't like I think that Stephen started with James hates Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like I'm totally fine with the character.
say it jokingly. I don't mean it seriously.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, there's been a lot of things that like, oh, they're going to make an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, and I'm like, nah, I don't want that. And it's like, why don't you want that? Everybody wants that, and I'm like, well, because it just like his story and his character doesn't connect with me at all, and it surprises me that it connects with other people, considering all the things that I've mentioned. And there's like this huge gap of time where we know that he wasn't up to anything. And if he goes and does something, it feels like it's just a rehash of Revenge of the Sith. Like, oh, he thinks he can still go save Anakin. So he goes and tries, and then he doesn't. And then it's like we leave in the same place that we already left him in at the end of that movie. So, I mean, okay, so is this supposed to be like Logan or some sort of Western where he's just dealing with like water tax, huts and stuff like that? Okay, maybe. But why is this the movie we want to go to? There's so many other options. I easily, hands down, take Mandalorian or Cassian Andor or like a Han Solo and Chewbacca, Lando, Kira, all going on adventures together, all that stuff. Like way more over like this tired, drawn out story of this guy, especially in a period where we already know nothing much is happening, and you have to make it as small as possible while still trying to draw people in. I don't know. It just seems contradictory, and that, I mean, I'm just fine with his story the way that it is, and I don't necessarily need it to keep going. John started this by saying he was one of the most fleshed out characters in all Star Wars. So let's talk about someone else,
Well, so. I mean, you make good points, but we all have
I'm ultimately wrong.
we all have our angles on that. I'm sure there's people listening who agree with you. So, I mean, we only had 30 minutes there. We can go on for a long time. I know you guys are probably hoping that we could, But we have other stuff to get into here. But I want to know what you guys think about Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character. What do you think about the points we made and hit on? Were there things you didn't think about? You're like, oh, maybe, yeah. Were there things we missed? Maybe because we don't have the time here right now. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know. And let us know what you guys think. What avenue they may take in an Obi-Wan Kenobi series if they get the chance to stretch that out in that time frame. And when you think it'll take place and all that sort of stuff. And we promise we'll revisit Kenobi again, especially if this thing starts going into production and there's more Kenobi to talk about. So, but now we are going to talk a little bit more about Kenobi, but in a fun way. So let's send it over to Lacey to see what you guys had to tweet about in Resistance Transmissions. Lacey?
All right, guys, time for Resistance Transmissions. So how this works is every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter, and then you guys give us your most creative, funny, best answers. So the situation this week is if Disney decided to make an Obi-Wan Kenobi series a 90s sitcom, what would it be called, and what would be the premise? Or what would the premise be? First up is Chris Brettel at Chris Brettel.
Way to get your handle,
Get your
Chris.
handle.
Yeah.
And he said, saved by the yell.
The Crate Dragon.
And the Crate Dragon, obviously. That's all I got.
I love that he said that's all I got. I'm like, you're going into the transmissions, buddy.
Up
That's
next,
funny. He saves Luke with the yell.
Yeah.
Which they change every time they put out a new edition of the movie, by the way.
right.
Now it just sounds like they just made a noise and like a delay pedal.
Yeah.
Up next is Seahawks Dad at Seahawks_dad. Did he get his handle, or does it not count? Oh, sorry. The underscore discounts your handle. Okay, and he says, Jedi matters. It's like family matters, but Obi-Wan is Urkel. His catchphrase is, hello there. And he uses it for everything. Oh, no.
So what is that? His like, did I do that?
Yeah. Did I do that?
It reminds me of Joey's like, how you doing?
Yeah.
Up next is Adam Odell at Odell Adam, who's one of our generals on Patreon. Hi, Adam. And he said, Boy Meets Galaxy. Oh my God, Boy Meets World. Boy Meets Galaxy. Okay. And he says, Old Ben Kenobi is the principal at a school on Tatooine and helps mentor Luke Skywalker and his friends, including Biggs, Cammy, and Lays, as they navigate the troubles of growing up. Wow, this is very specific. Ben is also Luke's neighbor and is always available for some sage advice.
Yeah.
That's the most
Nobi.
That's the most Adam Odell answer ever.
It really is. Rick Villanueva
Good one.
at Cad Bane's Bounty. I like that.
It's been a while since Rick popped in.
Hey, Rick.
Villanueva. He says it would be called He's Me. And every episode would be
He's me.
Obi-Wan telling Luke about one of his madcap wacky adventures in the third person. It would only be the end when Luke would ask, wow, do you know who did all that? To which he would hear, of course I do. He's me.
That's good.
Oh, geez, that was a good one.
Yeah,
Next up is
that sounds. It's not mimicking another show. It just sounds like a show that would exist.
Yes, I do. He's me.
He's
Steven and Santa at Steven and Santa.
getting the handle there, Steven.
Yeah, Obi-Wan in the city. Obi-Wan and friends Yoda and Mace Windu venture out and explore Coruscant's dating scene. And craziness ensues. Wow. Blind date with Asajj Ventress could have gone better. Oh, no.
It started good, though, because Obi-Wan's attracted to Asajj.
Weird. Yeah. All right, next is...
canon.
I know, but weird.
Canon.
Next is Jay Scherer at Jay Scherer.
Another handle.
Yeah. And it's bleep with an S. Old Ben says. That's the name of the show, and it's
So
Old
must
Ben.
be HBO or something.
Yeah, and it's Old Ben tells a story, and we see flashbacks of what really happened. Darth Vader killed your father. I don't ever I don't ever remember owning a droid. I was never interested in Padme. Every show ends with him, well, from a certain point of view.
He did. That's one thing we didn't really talk about in the discussion. He did bend the truth quite a bit over the years.
He did. He definitely did.
He bend the truth?
Better than you thought.
Nice. Well done.
I'd say I'll be here all week, but this is the end of our week.
Next is Villain at Scum and Villainy, and it's Force Ghost Coast to Coast.
Nice.
Obi-Wan's Force Ghost would be going from world to world telling people lies about who their parents really are.
That's a jerk Obi-Wan
with special
right
guest Brack, Zorak, and Moltar.
Yes.
Okay, and then last but not least is the Story Geeks at the Story Geeks, and they didn't title it, but it's in the style of Arrested Development. Old Ben. Darth Vader killed your father. Ron Howard. He didn't.
He didn't.
Old Ben. Old Ben. I don't remember owning a droid. Ron Howard. He did.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Very good.
Guys, thank you so much for entering Resistance Transmissions. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Every week, John puts up a crazy wacky situation, and then you just give your answer, and then we'll give you a shout on the show. And we talk about your handle. We have a good laugh. Back to you, John.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Obviously, sometimes we have those discussions, get a little contentious, get a little serious, and then those things are a good way to clean the palate in the show with some levity. So thank you guys so much.
Shake it off. Shake it off.
Got to do that. Got to do that. I think that is Taylor Swift. Is that what that is?
Swaler Tift.
That's her Star Wars character.
Made in China.
Swaler Tift. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, make sure you are subscribed to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. Comment and like, share, spread the word of the Resistance broadcast. The base is open and all are welcome at all times. I want to give another special thanks to our Patreon generals who I forgot to thank on Monday. That's why I opened the show with you guys. So here's I love bookends. So thanks again to Adam Odell, Carmelo, Jeremy Shook, and Val Trichkoff. We salute you guys. Thanks to all of our patrons. From tiers 1 to 5, thank you all so much for all your support. If you have any interest in our additional content and just simply to support the podcast, you can head to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. 5 tiers starting at $2 a month for access to the page. We post stuff on there about every day. And if you're interested, our tier 2 for $5 and above, you can submit topics to be featured on the show, just like you heard on this episode with a nice little shout out. Guys, make sure you do go to StarWarsNewsNet.com. It is our website for all of your latest news, reviews, editorials, information, and more, especially as the news is heating up for Star Wars this year. As you just saw this week, we covered a lot on Monday's show and today. So make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com every morning to stay up to date with your Star Wars news. You guys can find me over there on Star Wars Newsnet and on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. And how about James Baney?
Twitter and Instagram at Meyer Trunks. And I do want to send one a little thing out there to the Story Geeks, is that I think they did something actually similar to what you were saying on the Star Wars show one time, didn't they? They had Ron Howard come in and like narrate an Arrested Development Star Wars.
They did. Okay.
They did. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked that out, it's kind of exactly what you're saying. So go check that out. It's pretty funny.
Very good. Very good.
And James, you also operate our budding and growing Instagram page, right?
Yeah, Instagram and YouTube. Usually, if someone's commenting the official, it's likely going to be me. If you haven't signed up for Instagram or come over to subscribe there, it's just more original Resistance broadcast stuff. I'm asking questions. I'm posting funny pictures that I Photoshop together or whatever, So come check it out.
Lacey, when you aren't operating the Patreon page,
I was waiting to see what you were going to say.
I was thinking I was going to say something, but I was like, you know what? Let's just go straight to the point here. Where can people find, as we're in the hour and 10 minute mark here, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin. I'm mostly on Twitter talking about Star Wars and retweeting really funny things. You can also find me weekly on Star Wars Newsnet, the weekly show on our YouTube page. I'll give you the rundown of the latest news in 5 minutes or less.
Yes. And she's not shackled by the mouse, so we can talk about other stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And guys, you know, if you're listening and watching this, it's possible that the title for episode 9 came out, but this had already been recorded, so we're not skipping over anything like that. We just missed it. But if it came out, cool. That means it's
and there's
out.
Probably a reaction video somewhere on our YouTube page.
Somewhere on our YouTube page or on Patreon, yeah. But thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it so much. And again, just do us a favor. You know anyone who likes Star Wars? Tell them about the Resistance broadcast. They can simply Google us and find us. And we just want you guys to make sure you have a wonderful weekend. And we will, as always, be right back here with you on... Look at the Kylo Ren party. I don't have one. If you're watching on YouTube, they're hugging their Kylo Rens. So I'm going to get out of here because I don't have a Kylo Ren. I have to go to the store and buy one. We'll see you guys on Monday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.